Okay, all right, we're going to start over again. So the first thing we need to do is access your GitHub accounts. So go to github.com, just like, and now I need to share my screen again for us. Okay, so go to github.com and click sign in, and sign in with the GitHub account you want to use. And once you're there, give me a thumbs up, please, reaction, so I know that everyone's keeping up with me. All right, I see mostly thumbs up, so we'll go ahead and keep moving along here. So the first thing you need to do, I'm going to actually well, let me give you a quick outline of how we're going to do this first. We're going to set up a GitHub code repository. We're going to create a local version of that repository on our computer. And then we're going to put basically an R Markdown file in our local repository on our computer. Then we're going to push it back up to GitHub, and that's how we're going to publish out into the world. So the first thing we need to do is create the repository on GitHub so we can end up putting our files into it. So a lot of you probably already know how to do this, but if you don't, go ahead and create a new repository in GitHub. And you can do that by clicking this plus sign up here, or you might see a new repository button over here. Or if you've used GitHub before, you might see other options for how to do that on your screen. But I'm just going to click up here, click new repository. And then here, when you get to this screen, the way you're going to set up a GitHub Pages site is by doing something very specific, and that's by typing in your GitHub user ID into this box, Mine's Colin Pascal, and then do github.io at the end of it. So it's very important that your repository name is exactly the same as your GitHub login. So it's going to be your GitHub name .github.io, and you shouldn't have to change anything else on this screen. And once you've got that in there, you can go ahead and click create repository. And give me a thumbs up once you're at that screen, please. Okay, I see a majority of thumbs ups here. If I start moving too fast and you have a problem, raise your hand and I'll stop and we'll figure out what's going on. Well, once you've got this, and make sure that again is your username .github.io up here. At this point, you should have GitHub Desktop installed if you followed the instructions prior to the video here, prior to the workshop. So click Setup in Desktop when you're ready, and open that up. And you should get something that looks like this, that says Clone Repository. And give me a thumbs up, please, once you're there. I feel like I should put some background music on or something to fill in the thumbs up dead air time, something for the next workshop. Okay, so once you have the clone repository here, you want to change your local path and check what that is on your computer. It doesn't really matter exactly where this is, but you want it to be somewhere where you can locate it and you know where it's going to be on your computer. So for me, this field pre-populated with a location on my computer, in the documents folder, in the GitHub folder. So I'm going to choose that. And then I'm actually going to create a new folder in here, which I'm just going to call website. You can call it whatever you want, but the important thing is that you know where this is located on your computer. And once you do that, go ahead and hit select. Again, make sure you know where that path is. I actually don't want it in untitled. That's a mistake. So I know it's in GitHub/website. I'm go ahead and click clone. Okay. Give me a thumbs up once you're there. You know where your folder is on your computer. Okay, I'm seeing once again, a plurality of thumbs up, so I assume we're in good shape. So what we're going to do now is we now have the repository set up on our computer and it's connected to our GitHub repository online. So I want to do a quick test here to make sure that these things are connected and that files that we put on our local computer will load up into GitHub. So what I want you to do is, using File Explorer or Finder, whatever is appropriate for your operating system, Let me get that up here. Navigate in your file explorer to that folder on your computer. So in my case, it's in my documents folder, in the GitHub folder, in the website folder. So make sure you can locate that on your local computer. And once you do that, I want you to open up any old text editor you like that you use in your work. It could be Notepad. I use BB Edit. It could be Sublime. It could be whatever you prefer. I want you to just create a blank document that says hello world. And I want you to save that file as index.html. And I want you to put that in your folder, your local folder that you set up in GitHub to be for that repository. So for me, again, it's in the GitHub folder and it's in websites. It's called index.html. And I'm going to go ahead and click save. And all it says is hello world in it. As you can see, now that's located in my local folder. So once you're done with that, go ahead and give me another thumbs up, please. Okay, so now that you've got this index file in your website folder locally, if you look on GitHub Desktop and you're pointed at that repository, which you should be because you just set it up in GitHub Desktop, you should see an index.html file here in the changes log. And what we want to do now is we want to upload that index file to our GitHub account so we'll be able to look at the website. So what you want to do in order to upload it is first click commit to main. And then once you've hit commit, go ahead and click publish branch. Now, once you've done that, you should be able to go to your website, which for me is colinpascal.github.io, and for you will be whatever your GitHub username .github.io. You should be able to navigate to that. And here in a minute, once it gets uploaded, it should pop up as just a hello world HTML file. So we'll give it a minute to upload. It sometimes takes a minute to get everything synced. And the trick is that sometimes you have to open a private window in your browser and try opening it up in there just in case. Any issues. Okay, kicked over. Okay, so you should see at this point, if you go to your browser to your website, you should see hello world there. And that is the very, very basic website that we've just created. Okie doke. All right, cool. All right, so now the magic is going to start happening. So what we want to do now is open up RStudio on your computer. And it's important if you have an instance of RStudio running, please go ahead and close it first. Don't just, we need to start from like an all fresh RStudio to make this work properly. Okay, so once you've got your RStudio opened up, go ahead and click new project here. So not new script, but new project, this button here, which is just one to the right in your toolbar. So create a project, and you're going to want to create a project in an existing directory. And what we're going to do is we're going to create the R project within the directory that we have our GitHub set to sync up to. So that same folder where you put the index.html file, that's where you're going to put all the files that you're going to use to create your website out of Markdown files. So click Browse from here. And you want to navigate yourself to your file where you have this index.html file that you created just a minute ago. And once you're there, go ahead and click Open Up. And remember, you're going to be creating a project out of an existing directory. Okay. Okay, so once you've got your project working directory set to that folder for your GitHub account, go ahead and click Create Project. And what I want you to do now is I want you to type the following into your terminal. I'm going to put this in the chat so we all know exactly what it is. And once that's in your console, I should say, go ahead and press enter. And oops, correction, little r markdown. I think I got auto corrected there. Little r markdown site skeleton. And then git working directory in there. And give me a thumbs up once you've got your site skeleton command punched into your console, please. Okay, great, perfect. Seeing some thumbs up here, so I'm going to keep pressing on. What I want you to do now is navigate back to that folder in your Finder or in your File Explorer where you put that index.html file. And I want you to delete the index file that you have in there right now, that old just hello world file you had. We don't want this anymore. We're going to clear that out. So let's take out that index.html file. And you should see also in this same folder these other placeholder documents that were created when we did that skeleton site command. So you should see your R project itself. You should see index.rmd, about.rmd, and this YAML markdown file. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do, and this is an extremely important step, which actually I was practicing this with Dr. Bachner earlier today, and I failed to include this step, and it caused a lot of problems. So it's important that we fix this. You should see in your RStudio, you should be able to get through in the files pane. You should be able to open up this _site.yaml. I want you to click that so it comes up as a tab in your R Markdown. And then I want you to add the following to line 2. So in between name and navbar, I want you to type in outputs _dir colon double quotes period double quotes. And I'm going to stick that in the chat so we all know exactly what to type in. Okay, seeing a great majority of thumbs up, we'll go ahead and move on. So just to give you a little background here. The way that this works is that the R Markdown project, when we did that site skeleton, it created the backbone for what our website's going to look like. In a minute, we're going to knit this file together, and we're going to turn these R Markdown files, which have been pre-populated in our by the program. We're going to knit these to HTML documents, and then this YAML Markdown file will provide you sort of the structure, the navigation structure for your website. So you're going to see here in a minute, you're going to see that the website's going to be titled My Website, and you're going to see a nav bar that has I should say, that has a text, has a home button and an about button. And those are going to link to the HTML files that we're going to knit from when we knit the R Markdown. So what we want to do to actually create the site, to build it together like that, is down again in your terminal, do R Markdown, colons, and render _site, but with empty parents. So let me stick that in the chat for y'all. And I'm going to go ahead and run that on my computer. And our Markdown is going to start doing stuff. Now, once it's all knitted, if you go back to the local folder where all these files are located, you should see that we now have this index.html file again. And I'm going to open that up. And this is the very beginnings of what our eventual website's going to look like. So you can see that this is just local. We haven't actually uploaded it to the web yet. But you've got the home and the about tabs. And these two documents here, these correspond to what's in these markdown files. Okay. All right, so once you've got your files knitted and you can look at your local copy of your website, I want you to give me a thumbs up, please. Okay, cool. We charge forward. So what we want to do now is go back to GitHub Desktop. And at this point, you should see in your change log, you should see you should see a whole bunch of changes because we've added a bunch of folders, a bunch of files to that local folder. And what we want to do is you need to, every time you do a commit, when you're using GitHub, you need to title that commit. So we're just going to give this like test site. I'm going to call it test site. I'm going to hit commit to main. And then I'm going to go ahead and push it. Then once I commit and push those local changes, I'm going to go back to my website, the actual online version of it. So going back to colinpascal.github.io or whatever your username is. I'm going to hit enter and we're going to wait for a minute while hopefully it uploads and gets everything synced up. So it will appear here in a minute. Perfect. Here now too. Yes. Okay, great. All right, so we now have the knitted markdown files have been turned into HTML. They've been pulled together into a website using the YAML markdown file. And now we actually know that the files that we are changing locally on our computer, we can upload those and we can view them through the internet on the actual web. So once you have that, can you give me a thumbs up, please? So I know that you're actually looking at a live online version of your website. Excellent, very good. Excellent, excellent. Okay, so at this point, it becomes a little kind of straightforward actually in terms of what you want to do, and how complicated you want to get is sort of up to what you think you need to do in order to make yourself look as good as possible on the web. But all you have to do now is modify the R Markdown files, which are pulled together into these HTML files, commit those changes locally, push them out, and then whatever you can make in R Markdown, you'll be able to actually post to the web. And so this means that if you're making an R Markdown report for a final project for a class, all you got to do is knit it together, and you can locally on your computer push it up to GitHub, and it'll be out there for the world to see. So for instance, let's say that I wanted to create a markdown file that had like an example project in it or some example work. How would I add that to the site to make it more complex? Well, if you want to add a section, what you want to do is you want to create a new R Markdown file, which will have the content you want in it, and then you're going to add it into the nav bar in the YAML file. So let's just do a test for that. I'm going to create a new R Markdown file in R in my RStudio instance. And I'll just call this, test whatever, test work. It's just going to be a document. It's going to be an HTML output. I'm going to click OK. And what I want to do is I'm going to save this markdown file in the website folder that I've created locally, right? So I'm just going to call this example work. I'm going to click save. And then once I have, and we don't need to change any of this right now. This is just the standard template for an R Markdown file that you'll see on your computer. And what I want to do now is I need to modify my YAML file to include that in the navigation bar for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to navbar, and I'm going to create another entry in this list. I'm going to do text. I'm going to call it example work. And I'm going to put the link to the name of my R Markdown file I just created. So I'm going to do example work.html. If you could just give me a thumbs up if you're tracking me on that, I'd appreciate it. Okay. So once I have that new addition, the new R Markdown file loaded, and I've modified my YAML file to include the navbar text and the link for the navbar, I'm going to go ahead and render the site again to make sure that it incorporates those updates that I just did. So I'm going to do another R Markdown : render site. Add the chat again. I'm going to run that. And R Markdown will work its magic. Then I will open up another copy of that locally on my computer. And we'll hit that index file. And we'll see that now we have a new tab in my draft website, my local copy of the website. If you click example work, whatever you have in that R Markdown file is now going to be incorporated into your site in the navbar. And if you guess what we're going to do next, that means you're ahead of the game, because now we have more local changes in our GitHub account that we need to commit and then push up to our websites. What I will do is just put in like example work here to name the commits. I'll commit that, and I'll push it out there to the world. Then in just a minute, we should see that our website will have changed again. Might need to wait for a minute for it to refresh. Okay, I'm going to assume, based on the overall quiet, that everyone's kind of tracking with me. But I mean, what I've basically shown you here is the basic steps that you need to do in order to build out a website. If you can make something in R Markdown using this method, you can upload anything you want to into GitHub. And it doesn't have to just be R Markdown files that you upload either. You can actually upload other documents that you can then link to within your R Markdown file that you open up. So for instance, if you wanted to put your CV or your resume into your website, you can do that as well. And the way you do that is you would find a copy of your CV and you upload it into that local folder on your computer. So let me grab a copy of my CV here, for instance. And put it in my local folder. As you see here now, I have a file, a PDF of my CV is now in my local folder for my website. And if I want to link to that, one thing I can do is create another entry in my navbar where I put text and I put CV right here, and then I can do an href link to the actual Pascal CV document itself. Yep, that will work. Okay. So we'll go ahead and save that, and we'll knit the thing together one more time. And then we'll come back to our GitHub desktop. I've made changes. I'll commit the CV to main, and I'll push it out there to the world. And one more time, we'll just wait for it to update. So, I mean, I'm assuming that a lot of you are coming into the workshop here kind of knowing how to use Markdown already. If you haven't, the place to start is an R Markdown cheat sheet, which will tell you the basic format for creating R Markdown documents and the different formatting choices you have within that document. This video is not about actually making the R Markdown document itself or how to embed code chunks. Certainly, I'm happy to answer questions about how to do that. But I think a lot of you should be getting that in at least the data visualization class, I know for sure, and possibly in some other ones in your courses. So I'm not going to go over all the details of that right now. But the general gist of it is like you can build your website this way. You can post it to the world, and anything you put in a Markdown file, you can put up on the web. So that's kind of all I have for the presentation. I just wanted to kind of walk through that. And if you guys have specific questions or you would like to get some more detail on anything, let me know. Other than that, if you kind of feel like you got what you wanted out of this workshop, you're free to duck out. If you want me to sort of talk to you individually, I can do that too.